feedback going. I gotta turn the.
No,
We're
right
good?
now.
Okay, we are good.
Yeah,
Okay,
there won't be, but on the video, will there be feedback on the video?
I don't think so, will there, Dave?
So everything's on the phone.
No, because there's
No.
not video, there's not sound on your side of the video. This is a live feed for everybody else, so you'll hear this talking here, but they won't be able to hear you.
There we go, that's what I want, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got, if you want, I've already got the, FM4 thing
Okay,
pulled up, if that's what we're up to.
Yep.
there you go.
All right. We're ready, Nancy.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Meeting order, roll call.
Mr. Wright,
Here.
Mr. Hennis,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Present.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Here. On B, presentation of facilities audit, FMG will present the facilities audit conducted on the district.
So President Hopkins, members of the governing board, as promised, Mark Rafferty is here from FMG. So I'm going to trade spots with him, and he is going to present their findings on the audit they've done.
President Hawkins, members of the board, Dr. Beebe, thank you. I'm going to review just a little bit of what we did because we had a pause in the middle. We were sort of under quarantine during about a month or 6 week period where we had planned to come and visit the sites and go through the sites with Tim and our team. And during that time, I think everybody, that was early on in April, and the first part of May, and I think everybody was pretty well battened down at that time and not making the run. So prior to that, however, I had been here and explained what the FM forecast and what our facilities forecast was all about, how we did it. Part of what we do, approximately half of what we do, is we go through all the documents that you have in the district that look like the picture on the left, which is a floor plan. We have floor plans, roof plans, site plans, building elevations, and these things. I need to make this okay, I'll go back. And we use a software called on-screen Takeoff to measure all of the quantities of materials that we consider to have life cycles. Some materials do not have life cycles. A good example would be glass. Other materials are virtually all flooring, roofing types, exterior hardscaping, paving, asphalt, concrete. We even look at court coverings such as tennis court coverings and the synthetic or the rubberized track surfaces, etc. So we look at all the things that are going to fail over a reasonable period of time, 15 to 20 years, and some of them less than that. And we work with experts in terms of what costs of these materials to be removed and replaced are. And because these are going to be significant capital obligations for the school district, we measure those, we put prices on them, we attach life cycles to them. And then the last thing that we do is we go into the field and physically examine all of those materials as they're replaced currently. And we grade them. We grade them using our eyes and our experience. In some cases, we need to have experts help us. For example, we do have experts help us evaluate roofing condition, life cycle, and where that sometimes, because there are maybe 20 popular types of roofing, where this type of roofing is in its life cycle, how much longer is it going to last? And the same thing with HVAC equipment, because of the variety of that there is, and it's also kind of an area of expertise. So we always have someone help us do that that's expert. And in this case, I would say that also Tim Mace helped us a lot, and gave us some insight based on his knowledge of the HVAC system. So our deliverable is that the hard copy of the deliverable looks like this. And that deliverable consists of I'm gonna move forward this a little bit. So you can see the different colors and textures that are on the floor plan. And those represent different materials. For example, the brown, that's brown, could be carpeting, and maybe this pink would be ceramic tile, and another color might be VCP. I can't really read it from here. But those all then roll up based on our software into quantities of each one of those materials. And those go right into our database, our forecast database, so that we then understand all of the, and I'm gonna move around over here. So this is just an auditorium, as you can see. And in the auditorium, there are different rooms. There might be dressing rooms, there are storage rooms, classrooms, and auditorium. So these are the room names. J is J building, 29, 30, 31. And then all the conditions that we consider to have a life cycle in those rooms. And the quantity of those conditions. And then as we move further to the right, as you can see in our full hard copy, we move further to the right, we see how much per square foot we estimate that to cost, and what percentage of its life cycle, what its life cycle is, what its percentage of life cycle remaining is, and all of that leads up to, and is this, so this is, I'm going to pull this up because this is our final really graphic that shows, and this is a roll up for both high schools. This is a 20-year look ahead. We're going to talk during this presentation about the first 2 5-year segments, the first 10 years. Each one of these colorful columns represents an amount of money. So that's a direct scale. The higher the column, the more money it represents. And the conditions on the left are interiors, plumbing, electric, roof, exterior, grounds, mechanical, and then we have a variety of other things that we didn't measure, for example, IT and transportation that we didn't do here. And the costs that are predicted in each one of these cells over this period of years, like it's much more granular than that. I'm not going to do that here. Sorry about that. I'm not going to do that here, but the database is very rich with information. What this yields for your district is that, so I'm not going to see. So we look at Vista. Vista's at a very, I mentioned this the last time I was here, Vista's at a critical date, a critical point because it's just reached the 12 to 20 age range. It's just moving in to the 12 to 20s. Union, on the other hand, is a mature school. That school was built in put into operation in 97. So it's 23 years old. It's already cycled out. Most of the materials in that building, from HVAC equipment to roofing and et cetera. And Dr. Beebe and I were talking earlier about the asphalt paving. Your asphalt paving is probably at Union High School is 3 to 5 years past due. It had, when I started working here at this district about 10 years ago, there was already structural damage with that asphalt because the sun had overcured it, so it had structural breaks in it. Those haven't really been repaired, so that all the asphalt at Union, we'll talk about that in a second in terms of dollars, should have been replaced by now. It hasn't been. And it's a 23, 24-year-old facility sitting out in the desert. So Union and Vista are two different stories, really. Vista is just coming into the period where things are going to need to start being replaced into that 12 to 20 life age group. It's a cooling tower up in the right-hand corner of Vista. And Union, just about everything at Union has cycled out already. And whether it's been replaced or not, it has, all the components have reached the end of their service life. In a lot of cases, in particular particularly in K-12. Something, for example, a piece of air conditioning equipment, excuse me, reaches the end of its service life, it remains in service, even though technically at the end of its life. It's no longer best value to the district, in other words, to maintain that piece of equipment rather than replace it. That's how we would determine whether something was still serviceable. I already went through our steps of physical examination and determining how many years we consider to have remained with the different components having life cycles. Here is just a quick glance. This is our quick rule of thumb on interiors, flooring, walls, ceilings, door hardware, counters and casework, toilet room partitions. Those are some of the big things that get a lot of use in school environments, particularly high schools. Interiors, exterior systems, and grounds. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. So here's the first 10 years, first two 5-year blocks of the 20-year analysis that our database does. This is just for Vista Grad. I would look at this at a glance, just doing the 5, 10. We were talking about capital plan earlier this year, and I'm going to bring it up again because capital plans can lead to bond elections, but they don't always lead to bond elections. Sometimes capital plans just help a district understand what its capital thinking needs to be over the next year or 3 years or 5 years. And I think that's really what our forecast does for this district. At Vista Grand, as you can see, it's moving in, as it moves into that 12-year-old, range. I'm going after year 1 there, but believe me, there's a year 1 in front of year 2. As you move into that 12 to 20 range, you can see how the numbers sort of begin to slope up as we get further into that second year where you're getting, for that second 5-year group, years 8, which would be about 20 years of age, 20 years for Vista, and you start looking at major mechanical system replacement. That's primarily what that, what that number is. Remember right?
Define that, excuse me, I apologize for interrupting.
Sure.
Define a little bit what that, the $2 million for mechanical, what that entails.
That's going to be the replacement of probably every piece of equipment. I'm not going to specifically say, but I know generally what's happening at Vista, and I've talked with Tim about it. At that 20-year point, that's when the serviceability of, I refer to it as everything that turns cold water into cold air. So every fan coil unit, each one of those fan coil units is equipped with operational valves. So we would typically, at a minimum, that it's between 16 and 20 years, we would go into a valve replacement. By 20 years, the fan coils themselves are repairable, but they're no longer, it's really no longer best value to repair those. Some of those fan coil units, their life cycles are drawn, their lifespans, their life cycle is over 20 years, but their lifespan are pulled out at the 24, 26 years, and it becomes a very burdensome on M&L and on maintenance teams to keep those fan coils running when they get to be that age. So that's what I think that is at that 8-year level. Also, everything else that has that hard, steady contact with water, which is your pumps, valves in the central plant. If your chillers are properly maintained, probably not yet. But if your cooling towers are not properly maintained and descaled, etc., then 20 year, and if they're not stainless steel, so if you have galvanized cooling towers, and these are SFP cooling towers, so my guess is that I'm not remembering, I see a lot of cooling towers. My guess is that they're galvanized. They're very difficult to control scale and corrosion. So a typical galvanized cooling tower has a 20-year life cycle. So you start doing cooling towers, recirculation pumps, fan coil units, control valves, and you can get to a couple of $1 million in a high school really quickly. So that's what that HV. I hope I didn't go too far with that, but I want to let you know what all these parts are in a campus that has a central plant. They're super efficient, but the price is that, or the penalty for that is that when you do have to do replacements, which is not as often as packaged HVAC equipment, but when the time does come, it's more expensive to do than replacing rooftop package units, for example. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that did. And I guess I'm trying to have to factor in how good of a maintenance schedule, what you kind of factor in, if that's just, you're assuming that things are well maintained, in between maintained, not maintained, et cetera.
So we would, our calculated, or rather the life cycle numbers that we put into our database are based on routine maintenance. So if you don't have routine maintenance, or for example, in some locations around, I don't want to mention any names, but we're working with the district right up the highway that doesn't have central plants, it has all rooftop package units. It's also highly agricultural, and there's a lot of dust and particulates in the air. And over the years, they've had a habit of not replacing their filters often enough. So that's a case where we have a higher need for maintenance, more than you would have in a non-agricultural situation, but less scheduled maintenance. So what that means is when you have a rooftop package unit that circulates a lot of air, outside air, that should have a 16-year life cycle, and in some cases it can be better than that. These machines are burning out at 11 and 12, 13 years. If they had increased, if they'd gone beyond what normal maintenance would be in terms of coil cleaning and filters, they probably could have got the full 6, even in that dirty environment, pointing in that direction, because it's up the highway. Even in that condition, they could have, by increasing their maintenance, they could have probably got the normal 15 or 16 years out of those package units. So the fan coils that you have here are not a lot different. They still have to take outside air and filter it and condition it and introduce it into the classrooms. At 20% of the year per hour needs to be replaced with fresh air in every classroom. So again, I hope I didn't go too far with that. We don't get to talk very often. So does that help with the? Is that calculation based? Your question was, is that calculation based on average maintenance or poor maintenance, right? Or
Exactly. No, that's good.
okay.
That's good. And I would assume that in the one example that you're giving, that a service manager probably, or the plant manager would not be kept around if they weren't doing quality upkeep on their and maintenance on their equipment.
Well, if I were running the show, that would be the case. That person would not be. It's not that hard to do.
Okay, that was my basic question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Right.
Yeah, so this finished document, and this is a live document when you hand it to us.
Yes.
And so all the numbers are live in it. And so when you went and created this document, did you take into account with Mr. Mace any of the equipment that has been recently replaced along the line?
That's the main reason we met with him,
Okay,
so that he could tell us what,
so you did that.
what was new. What
Okay.
did we know?
So we've got all the replaced equipment plugged in there, so that life cycle for that equipment is
It's back up
back
to
on
100%.
number 1 year or whatever the years are, and it's factoring in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's done. Okay.
We had quite a few. Didn't we have some chillers replaced?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
But your pieces of equipment, I mean, if I don't have it live in my laptop. But, I mean, the number of pieces of equipment that we have for even these year 2 high schools is just, it's hundreds of pieces.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of moving parts with the central plant.
Yeah.
And, so what it is a live document, and I think I might have mentioned it when we did our first beta test of our database, which was probably in maybe 2012 or 13. We had just had the database made and we were beta testing. So we came down here because we knew this district well, and we gathered the data that we needed, because we just needed data to see if this thing would run. So we gathered data and we put it into our database, and it was all about Casa Grande 2 high school, same thing. We had a different way of doing things. It was very archaic. It was very, very fresh. But then we gave it to Tim, and we sat with Tim, and we asked him if he could, quote unquote, drive it. So if he could take the live Excel-based document,
Okay.
and see if he could get through it to see if it would tell him what he wanted to know, right? And answer his questions. And he gave me some flack last time I saw him, because I told this story before here, and he couldn't drive it because it couldn't be driven, and it wasn't because he was not capable. It was just because the database was. So since then we've had, I think we're on our version 4 right now, which is probably the last one they do, because it drives really easily. We have a client copy. It's alive, but it doesn't have any formulas in it, so you can't accidentally tamper with it. It allows you to ask it, the database allows you to ask it easy questions, and it gives you simple answers in terms of what type of material, how much, where is it, So it's a very live document. And what we just did with Tim, by sitting with him and going through the mechanical stuff, we did a couple of roofs that we had some questions about too, so that we could plug in everything that had been replaced that's fresh in it. So now it's really fresh and current to what your situation is. So he can keep doing that. That's the whole idea. He can keep every year, whenever, every 6 months or every year, he can either call us or he can do it himself. He should be pretty comfortable right now. Come in and freshen up. Anything you replace, any flooring that you replace with polished concrete, any roofing that you have replaced using the SFP, or something like that. You can plug it in, make it fresh, and it brings your document right back up to speed. Again, I think I used a lot of words to answer your question.
You got everything across in life. Yeah.
Document, yes, it is.
I understand that.
So keep going. So this is Vista.
That's great. Oh, yeah, that's this.
Here's Vista, where I was. And again, just rounding off, we're looking at the first 5 years, an obligation. You're starting to get into things like, where are my sheets? You're starting to get into some finishes. If you see up at the top, row, which is interiors, year 3, 4, 5, 6. Most of that is undoubtedly painting and flooring replacements, because you're getting into that 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old finishes. That, high school, or the soccer the finishes, the high schools will just really tear those finishes out. About $1.5 million for the first 5-year period. So this sort of capital plan, that is typically, once I see something, and I'm going to show you this in a second, which is this is like the first thing that I do when I'm looking at a 10-year life cycle. I see my highlights. But this is for both schools. Now, and one of the things that I do is I'm going to move on to Union. Union looks like about 3.5 to about 6.5 million for the first and second 5-year groups. About 10 million overall for 10 years, which is not bad. Because, what that means is for this 22, 23-year-old school is that, and I was telling Dr. Beebe before we started, that I know that high school really well. And I've been going there for years. And when I was there this spring, or in May, it looked as good as I've ever seen it look. It really did. I have pictures on my phone of the campus, with the trees that are all, nicely taken care of, the grass is growing, and all the paint on the interior balconies is gorgeous. It's just really the exterior, what was done there with, fixing the rails along the outside. If you know, as I know, that those anchors were rotted out at the base. So anyway, that school, if it weren't for the exterior work that has been done at that school, though that 10-year number, that 10 million, would be, $3 to $4 million higher. That would be more typical, So that's Union. So then we do
Before you leave, you're talking about both schools together right now, right? Is that what the 10 million?
right now I am. I'm moving from the 10
Okay.
Union.
Yeah, just before you leave Union up there, I just wondered what you had on for interiors on where you got year 3, where you got $1 million plus.
I'm going to say that that's the 25-year age, and that's probably every piece of interior casework that there is on campus, with the exception of Building K or whatever the newest building around the southeast corner. That might be K. With the exception of Building K and that's every bit of counter, every bit of cabinetry in each classroom. It's 25 years old. It's on a high school site. It's beat. And again, the right thing to do is remove at a high school, is remove, regardless of the sound. People say we would like carpet in our classrooms because it cuts down on, it absorbs sound. But man, if you can handle the extra lively sound characteristics of a room, taking the carpet out of the classroom at high school, replacing it with polished concrete, or polishing the concrete that there is such the right thing to do, because it's the last thing you'll ever do. So I'm going to go back to, so I'm still on the 10-year for both. I'm going to move to both. This is what we would call a district-wide roll-up. So I'm going to show you this is my first sheet. So I will print one of these, which is exactly what you see on the screen. And then I start looking for big numbers that I'm not ignoring the smaller numbers, but I want to see what the big ones are, because those are issues. So those aren't just, replace, or redo the high school gym floor, or something like that. These are things that are bigger than that. And as you can see, even though I would normally only look at the first 5 years, I look out and I see what's happening, I say to myself, what's happening? What's happening in 8, 9, and 10 under mechanical? And that's, so, because that's something that's out there. Even if you're only thinking about these first 5 years, that's all we want to talk about. And it could be a performance contract, it could be a bond, it could be anything that you can do, or just absorb it into your normal capital plan. This is what you should be thinking about, but don't ignore the fact that, you know, I've got it in 8 and 9 primarily, but it could start happening in 6 and 7. There's a bogey out there. And that's the same thing that we were talking about earlier with Steve. So we've got that. We know that the first year, the 8th year, comes from the topic we were just talking about, which is the, you know, basically the 30-year mark for mechanical at Casa Grande Union. That's a $3 million issue that shows up on the roll-up for both. Let's see if we can find that. The 1.9 was what we were just talking about several minutes ago at Vista, which is, you know, that 20-year, 21-year mark for Vista. One of the things I haven't mentioned that I can't, maybe this will translate on the phone, is that, and this has a lot to do with you know, how should we address this issue, these likely obligations? I'm going to go back to both. Okay. So about, for the first 5 years, about $5 million. There are some things in here that Tim can do, or your facilities director can do with the SFP. This doesn't have any logic to it. It doesn't, this is pure what you're going to need. So there are still some things that can be whittled away using the SFB building renewal grant funding that Tim's been using for your schools. So it's not a hard $5 million, but my sheet shows the obligation at 5 and at 10 for the 10 years, for the second 5-year group. But I'm gonna, as I go to the screen, I want to say that if you don't do anything here with this year 1, which really starts in maybe August, if you don't do anything with this year, this $600,000 worth, there's some grounds on there. Grounds have been a hard thing for this district to make a priority over the years, or to have as a priority. If you don't do anything, the first year simply comes over and sits on top of the second year. You know, they don't like this, you know, they go like, you know, those obligations go like this. The second year, and the third year, and then the fourth year, and so on. So the obligations don't go away.
Are you talking asphalt when you say ground?
Yes, I'm sure that's what it is. Knowing your grounds, it's definitely asphalt.
That include exterior concrete and everything too?
All the concrete's in there. We have concrete, as you know, having been around buildings, concrete's a weird thing because some concrete just lasts for, like, you can get 40 years on the sidewalk.
Okay. Well, some of it's heaving.
And some of it has,
Yeah.
It's
We're having to grind it and everything.
burying under it, and it starts to pop, crack, and once that begins to happen, even in this climate, you wouldn't think of expansion and contraction. There's no frost, but even in this climate, the expansion and contraction of concrete, it just basically eats itself.
Yep.
So yeah, you do. But if you get a nice piece of concrete on a nice even, you know, substrate, man, you know, everything will. Out here where there's no salt and, you know,
And all the substrate varies across. You gotta get different kinds of soil.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's probably, you know, my conclusion. And So what we have is, in our hard copy, because our electronic version contains all of this, but you asked, Memorette, about, so this is our site takeoff at Vista. So you can see that, you know, all of the asphalt paving is in gray, and the concrete paving is in the peach or orange. You can see in the darker orange is the acrylic track. We have the court surfacing here and yet another. So we take all of that into account and grade it all. And hopefully you'll never.
So, as a question, I apologize, sir.
Yeah.
As a question, does Tim have access to that document right there?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you see that when I held that up?
I didn't catch that. Does Tim have access to the document?
Yes, he
Yes,
has
he
access
does.
to all this. Yeah, these are really, so here, and I'm gonna give you another thing, which is not really as much about, you know, capital replacements, et cetera, but we've had several districts that, I'm gonna find a floor plan here where all of our flooring materials are represented in different colors. And obviously the light blue is, in this case, it's VCT. So we have VCT in light blue, and I think the carpet is in the orange. But in addition to having that, all of the quantities are also shown up here. So we've had a number of districts that have brought their ABM, or, you know, their contract janitorial services back to the table and renegotiated their janitorial contracts based on these quantities rather than the quantities that the vendor gave them. Because guess what, you know, they're not the same. And we've also had, when Tim, for example, does do a flooring replacement or conversion, and a vendor, and if he's not doing it himself, a vendor may say, well, you know, we've got 22,500 square feet of carpeting that we're removing, and we're going to be polishing that concrete. Well, Tim can do an immediate check to see, you know, whether those values are correct. So that's just having these quantities, in other words, not for capital planning necessarily, but just to having awareness of what you have. Well, I think that's it. Also, we have a Dropbox that Tim has access to that has, high school, we would typically take 400 to 500 photographs. So, you know, document photographs, and of just in case you want to flash through and remind yourself of something. You know, so we probably have 800 to 1,000 photographs of your two schools that are in a Dropbox that Tim has access to.
Those are all generated by you?
Yeah. I think that's all I have. If there are any more questions, I'd be happy to
Thank you very much.
answer.
Very good report.
Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, members, and President Hoppus, thank you. I'm gonna- that's it right there.
Thanks, Jeff. All right.
Okay, so our next item is board agenda review.
And being that it's already 6:15 and we're going to start the next meeting at 6:30, I can run through the entire agenda, or I can just answer if you have any specific questions about any specific agenda item that you would like me to address prior
I
to
do
this.
have a question, and maybe if you could, on the, intergovernmental agreements,
Intergovernmental agreements, yes.
if you could quickly go through there and just explain what each one of those is for.
Absolutely, I can do that. So let me go through them. So the intergovernmental agreements. So the one it's Guppy Mac. There was two.
Yeah, the obviously one, you know.
The intergovernmental agreement is for the election. So the
Yeah.
first one, and we obviously, I think that's pretty obvious to you. We
Yeah.
have to do that. We have to do the IGA for since it's an election year, so we as a district, we have to do that. The next one is the intergovernmental agreement it's called Guppy Mac, or the Greater Phoenix Education.
Yeah.
I knew I was gonna visit. This is an organization.
This is a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been around for a while.
But it's new to us.
It's new to us because they are very specific about inviting districts to join their group.
Okay.
And so I was reached out to by Howard Carlson, who's with Guppy Mac. I'm familiar with Guppy Mac because in my former district, we were members of Guppy Mac. And it's a nice organization in Contingency that provides us insight on what's going on in the state, and they're another advocacy group. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, when we got a letter from Kathy Hoffman, right after Governor Ducey had made his statement that we needed to postpone school until the 17th. Well, and then Kathy Hoffman came out right behind and said, well, what he meant to say is that you can't go in person until 17th, but you can start earlier. Guppy Mac had that information 3 days before it ever came out. So they're that type of an organization. Just because we are potentially going to join, they've already included me in the email group. I've had probably not less than 45 emails now on very insightful information. So with this group, it costs us as a district, it's about $3,100 for a district, but that gives us 3 seats. There's a superintendent's division, there's a curriculum division, and then there's a business division. And so I would want both Melanie and Gina to also join. There's different meetings, different organizations. It's just another resource,
Sure.
a consortium. And again, I can share with you the list. There's only 55 districts. They're allowing 5 more districts in this year, and it's like you have to be invited or you don't get in. I can tell you the elementary district is a member. There are several other Pinal County school districts that are members. And so they intentionally want to hear the voice of education from across the state, and not, even though it started in Phoenix, they don't just want to hear the Phoenix voice. They want to reach out and hear the greater, the greater, Miranda's been one of them, Rancho Mountain's part of it. So anyway, we've just been invited. I think it's an outstanding opportunity for our district, and it's a huge resource because of the information and the advocacy that comes from it and for education.
And
So-
that was the question I was gonna ask you, what, there's information on the dissemination?
Yes.
As they do anything, are they lobbying?
Sometimes they will lobby as an organization, but they do that generally in conjunction with ASA. But the biggest thing is they are in the know, and they are constantly going out and advocating. And like I said, just because I knew we were going to bring it to you tonight, I've been included in their email group, and I've had, I swear, not less than 45 emails in the last 3 or 4 days just on information about education and the happenings of things. I'm aware of a press conference that's going to happen now with Governor Ducey tomorrow, talking about or not a press conference, but there's some more stuff he's going to come out with on the AOIs. So it's very informative, even more so than ASA at times, with information. So I think it's a huge benefit for our district to join, but we have to have obviously your approval because it's an intergovernmental agreement. And so I've already talked with Gina and with Melanie, and I would want them both to be representatives for our district in their areas of expertise. So they
And
will
the
have.
other one is just never Canada, ESA, or annual things?
Yes. So the other ones are just our normal, the normal things that we do on a regular basis.
Okay.
That is the only new one to
The only
you.
other question I had was, now you got listed as budget hearing.
Yes. Well, the budget,
And then
we mean the budget adoption.
Adoption.
Yeah, we had the hearing last time where you guys had a chance to see the budget and ask questions. Today is the formal adoption.
Today is the public hearing, the budget hearing is for if public has any questions about the budget. We have to do it separate from the action item.
Right.
Okay. Just in the future, I know this is a strange and interesting year. In the future, if we could do and I know this has been, and we've already talked about the budget, that there aren't any changes, you basically keeping it what we were the previous year.
Right.
But if we could, have a special meeting specifically just on the budget as kind of like a work session kind of thing, to walk all the way through a budget, especially with potentially some new board members coming on.
Oh, yeah. That is always a good thing to try to be up to speed on the budget. So. Anyhow, is there any other questions on anything on the agenda? So you guys, if not, we can adjourn the meeting and you guys can have a few minutes break before we start the next one.
Move to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
So,
We call our meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Wright,
Here.
Mr. Hennis. Mr. Hennis, are you still there?
I'm here, yes, I am.
And Mr. Lopez?
present.
And Ms. Hawkins?
Here. Okay. If you please join me and stand for the pledge and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Number 2, preliminary items.
I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Questions? I was just clicking on it.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Move to approve the minutes, move to approve the minutes of June 2nd and 23rd, 2020 as presented. Anybody?
So move.
I will second that motion.
Questions?
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item 3, a budget hearing, public hearing for the fiscal year 2021 adopted M&O budget.
So this is an opportunity if you have any questions or.
Any questions, anybody?
I'd say, Dr. Beatty, to please clarify again that we're maintaining kind of what we had done in the previous year. There weren't any real changes, there weren't any big capital, et cetera, if you would please.
Correct. So, basically, based on what we know on how we're going to be funded, right now, we do believe it's in our best interest to sit on as much carry forward as we possibly can and not to move forward any major budgetary expenditures. So therefore, I have not moved anything forward to you. Talking about SFP, some of the issues at Vista Grande where the color stucco is cracking is already being addressed. And so we're in a really good place. And so I think right now it's stay status quo until we know a little more about what our budget's going to look like in future years.
So we move to approve it.
So you just, as long as there's nothing else, then you just move on.
Okay, the only other question I have, is there going to be potentially making monies available to us for separation or partitions or plexiglass or et cetera, and potentially in classrooms for this coming year?
Yes, we went through the CARES Act. Remember, Hennis, through the CARES Act,
Yep.
the district has over $700,000 allotted to us for PPE, for technology for all the needs that we may be impacted by through this virus. We have a number of dollars that are associated with that. And as well as that, the mayor has contacted Dr. Gonzalez and myself, and the city also has CARES money available to them. And he's wanting to work with both school districts to help our cause when it comes to PPE or technology issues for our students. So the city is wanting to step up and help us with some of that as well. So yes, we're already working on that. We're already as we speak, where clerical staff sits and everything else, we're creating barriers and shields and things like that. So we will have money available, through that CARES and through grants to be able to do that.
That's great, thank you.
Yep.
Number 4, I did not see any policy public.
No, I did not get any via email.
I'm going to go on to number 5, the superintendent's report, policy baby.
President Hawkins, members of the governing board, it's always a pleasure to get to share with you. Just more of an update and a couple of congratulations. First of all, just a reminder to you is even though we are still in this, high risk with COVID and everything going on in our state, the district office and school offices are remaining open by appointment only, and we are following social distancing guidelines. I've worked with the district office staff here. Our principals have worked with their office staff, and we're only bringing in areas of the school where you have more than 10 people that might come in contact. We're limiting only half of those people coming into the office on any given day and kind of splitting time working from home and working in the office to follow those guidelines. So we're making sure that we're keeping our staff safe. Also just want to remind you as we get ready to talk about it tonight, while the AIA has given us guidelines and even with the board's blessing, we had given our coaches and people permission to start moving forward with some of that practicing. Our coaches are choosing to stop and call things off, or at least did for over a week, just because of things going on. And just a reminder that, as things go on and we start talking about reopening, should we not reopen in person for any length of time, the writing's on the wall for fall sports. You can almost count on fall sports being non-existent, just like spring sports were not. If kids can't come to school, we can't get on buses and go to football games and tennis and those types of things. So just to know that, whether or not we have sports will be, contingent on whether or not kids get back to school in person. So there'll be some contingencies there, so we'll be planning. Right now we're planning on them existing, but we don't know. Also want to let you know that our AOI, or the Arizona Online Instruction, our application is in with the state. We've received feedback that they have it. Now we just wait to hear back then for the official approval. We are anticipating approval because I don't know of any other district that has submitted that has not been approved. But there is some information in a meeting, and that's what I was just sharing about earlier with Guppy Mac, and that I'm now connected to. There's some information on that coming out tomorrow, so I look forward to that information, and I can share anything that might impact us. And then last things I just have is a couple of congratulations. First, I want to just take a minute to publicly congratulate the class of 2020 for graduating high school. I know it's been a rough year with everything going on, but if you have not seen either graduation ceremony and would like to, they are on YouTube. They're housed permanently, and so you still have the opportunity to go and see them. The ceremonies were different, but very nicely done. So I just want to say a public congratulations to our graduates. And then finally, a big congratulations to Gina Salazar and the entire finance department, who were just recently awarded the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for their comprehensive annual finance report, or the CAFR, for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2019 from ASPA. So they do a great job, and when you get this kind of recognition, it says you're doing a good job with your accounting and doing what you need to do. So I just want to publicly congratulate them for their efforts and their work. So,
Maybe just a quick question.
yes.
I think, did I read something or see something that you mentioned, and there's been just kind of a lack of direction from not only the state, but the county health services?
We've got.
They were replacing the health services person?
I understand that they are, but we have received, every week, every Wednesday, I'm in my Pinal County meetings with the Pinal County Superintendent, and every week we have some representative from the Pinal County Health Department that also joins us. What we're learning is as superintendents, we would like to have some direction from the Pinal County Health Department so they can give us some guidelines as we reopen. They in turn are frustrated because they are not getting guidelines from the state health department. So it's kind of that it rolls downhill. So they're frustrated with the state, we're frustrated with them, and nobody has any real clear guidelines from any health department as far as school reopening, other than what Superintendent Hoffman and Governor Ducey has done as far as delaying the start of in-person schooling. There's been no guidelines provided to school districts on.
Other than the president coming out saying all schools should open and start now.
Well, he would like them to start in person this year with no delay. So,
Ridiculous.
yeah. And again, we had that conversation here. I think sometimes those conversations are centered around people's mentality that school starts after Labor Day in September, because that's when the East Coast and West Coast does. But there are some of those in the middle that start a little earlier. So anyhow, but that is my report.
Okay. So matters reserved for board action, item A. Move to approve the fiscal year 2021 M&O budget as presented.
I move we approve the current budget, the new budget.
I second that.
Okay, questions?
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item B, move to approve the intergovernmental agreement as presented for provision of services by the Pinal County Recorder and Election Services.
I move we approve.
I will second that as well.
Discussion.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item C, move to approve the 2023 intergovernmental agreement with Greater Phoenix Educational Management Council as presented.
Deputy Mayor.
Deputy.
I would have said it wrong.
Just fun to say, right?
I will be that.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item D, move to approve the revised 2021 academic calendar as presented.
I move we approve the academic calendar for 2021.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, given the input from last Wednesday's meeting and all the concerns that we had from the teachers and the staff that are all participating in this, I think Dr. Beatty and his staff have done a great job of preparing that calendar to meet all the sides and make it workable. I think it's a very workable calendar. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. And again, just to clarify, if you look at the calendar, nothing has changed as far as our date. We're a 175-day calendar instead of 180 days because we're starting school on the 10th. So that's the only thing that's changed. All holidays remain the same. All professional development remains the same. Nothing has changed. The reason for the color coding is eventually, as you see it, the A and B group students, and we get ready to talk about that. It's just a visual for those people who need that to follow along. So
I agree. Thank you very much.
So even the fall break and the spring break days.
fall break, spring break, we have not touched the calendar. We went right back to the original calendar because by putting Wednesday, and I'll explain it here in a minute, by putting Wednesdays back in the mix and alternating our students, that gives us more instructional minutes. And so we're able to do that much easier.
So we still have a 2-week break?
No, just one week fall break, 1 week spring break,
Okay.
2 weeks winter break.
Okay.
Next year, we'll have start to begin the calendar that has the 2 week
week.
fall break, 2 week
Okay.
everything. So,
That's when you go to the modified schedule, correct?
yeah, not this school year, but the following school year, you'll have to modify.
Mhm.
And the elementary school, but hopefully if everything in the world is all right again, we'll be on the same schedule also.
And as far as I know, and I was told by Dr. Gonzalez, I could mention this to you because their board meeting is not till next week. But right now, I believe they are proposing not starting their school year until the 17th. I think they're going to delay by 1 more week. But in the elementary, level students, those students don't require as many instructional hours, and so they have a little more leeway. For us to start any later than we are, we're going to be pushing the envelope with instructional hours. So.
So I appreciated the one email. Chuck mentioned the emails that are coming on Wednesday. Specifically, I wanted the email from Paul McElroy was a well-written, well-thought-out email and addressed a lot of issues and seemed to be supportive of everything that was going on. But I just appreciated seeing that letter.
I would agree with that, and I've received several emails from teachers that are very, that have given us some great feedback and are supportive of, the collaborative effort to work together to get the school year running.
From the feedback that you have received at this point, at this time, with all the situation going on, are you getting good, positive response from most of the teachers that they will return, provided they have the safety precautions in place?
We put that out, Member Lopez, we put that out to our staff. What I can tell you is a large portion of our staff is still very nervous and very fearful about returning in person. What was communicated is that, especially from the association, is we started talking about reopening in the past. 3 things came from that. Number one, they were supportive of starting a school on time and having 8 days of professional development, which I think we absolutely need. Number 2, they were supportive of starting school on the 10th virtually, so we can get kids back in school. And number 3, they were supportive of the the hybrid model of coming back. Just we're not real thrilled with the initial calendar and or bell schedule that was created. And so that's where we got. So I think we've resolved those issues now. So.
Any more questions?
Now, does that calendar include the bell schedule, or is that something different?
No, that's something different. The bell schedule is just how kids rotate classes,
Okay.
and I do the
Does that need to
reopening
be
plan.
approved by us?
No, I've never known a governing board to
Okay.
approve the bell schedule. It's
All
just
right.
working it, but I'll share the bell schedule with you.
Okay,
And when we do the reopening plan next.
okay.
Mr. Wright,
Yes,
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Okay, move to approve the 2021 school year reopening plan as presented.
So we get a motion and a second and.
I'll move.
Thank
Get it on the table.
second,
Discussion.
Well,
I just want to make sure, Dr. Beatty,
yes,
when we read that, everything this is a fluid document.
the PowerPoint that is sent to you,
Yes,
yes.
that we're still living under how everything is opening, but the intent, I guess there's some things you can tinker with. Your intent is students 2 days a week, physically 2 days a week, virtually, and then a half day on a Wednesday, is that correct?
Well, no, because that's changed. For us to be able to get our instructional minutes and put the Wednesdays back in, our Wednesday schedule will go back to an early release schedule where the kids are here until 1:30. So even our seniors would get 4 hours of instructional, 4 instructional hours every Wednesday. On the other days, they would get 4.5 instructional hours. And by doing that, we're able to cut our calendar to 175 school days and still meet our 720 hours of instructional minutes. And to speak of that, and if you would like, I can run through this PowerPoint and just kind of give you a highlight, because we've created this PowerPoint mainly for the purpose of educating our parents and sending it out to our parents so that they know, they understand our reopening plan and kind of understand our intentions. But since we talked about bell schedule, the bell schedule that we are working on currently has school starting at 8 o'clock. Getting out at 3 o'clock on a regular day, which is actually 10 minutes earlier than we did this year. So it's actually 10 minutes earlier. 3 lunch periods that are 30 minutes long so that we can separate students less students out at lunch at any given time. Plus our teachers get a 30-minute lunch to eat. Teachers will, again, like always, on a full contract, we'll teach 5 classes a day and have a prep. So that's the bell schedule. So it's actually 10 minutes shorter in time than it was this school year.
So the concern earlier had been with one of the other kind of proposals or thoughts or working plans was that they would be working longer, the teachers potentially would have a longer day.
Right.
Based on this one, they actually have potentially a shorter day.
They have a 10-minute shorter day than they did a year ago. Yeah, the part of the concern, and I can understand where it was coming from. There was some valid concerns in the fact that the only way we could eliminate Wednesdays was to make a much longer school day on the other days. So it's kind of that trade-off. You work a little longer day, overall matter of time in that other schedule, nobody would be working more than 40 hours, but it would make a longer day for people. And longer days, it also stretches, the longer your school day gets going, then your athletes, your kids who are in extracurriculars, they start missing lots of school to go to events. So there's give and take. And so by just plugging Wednesdays, and that's what I try to explain, just plugging Wednesdays back in allowed us to go to a more traditional bell schedule, still get our hours in, and not alter the calendar. So what we thought initially might have been a benefit turned out that we felt that way, but others were very much opposed that it wasn't a benefit. It was more of a hindrance and far it would cause people to work longer. So
Well, some of the feedback was from teachers where the longer day interrupted their off-school duties as far as dropping off kids, picking up kids, and they felt like they weren't going to be able to do that anymore.
we have a number of teachers, married couples who work in our district that have children, and so it would cause some conflict. So I think we have resolved all that, and so I would like, you wouldn't mind, I'd like just a few minutes, I'll run through this and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and so you have this, Jack, and by the way, let me mention before I go to this, for anybody who's watching publicly, this document is also on the public site under board docs, so you're welcome to follow along if you cannot see it on the screen. So, obviously our first slide is to start school, and again, just to let everybody know that we are in response to Governor Ducey's executive order on the 29th, that we will begin school August 10th with enhanced instruction and remote learning, until it is deemed safe for our students to return to school. And so all students enrolled will be provided a district laptop as usual. I'll be working with our principals, just kind of like we did when we had kids exit and we had to figure out ways to get them in, to turn in athletic equipment and get their own belongings out of lockers and band instruments and those types of things. We will then, now we will have to figure out ways to get our freshmen in to the sites and get devices in their hands before school starts so they can be ready to learn. But we'll work through that. I'm confident that we can do that. And then obviously safety first. And I think one thing that's important for our whole community to understand is that in Cascade Union High School District, that we have been working diligently on plans to reopen schools this fall. And our priority remains the health and safety of our students, staff, and their families. I think we have to look at everybody involved and our community as a whole and make sure safety is first priority. With that said, in our safety reopening plan, we're making decisions to ensure consistency and equity for our students, and we continue to look at COVID-19 data, follow guidelines from the CDC and Pinal County Health Department. For due to the ever-changing COVID situation, the learning model options presented are tentative because we don't know. Right now, we're assuming that we can come back in person on the 17th, but as we did when we closed, that date can get extended, and it can get extended again. We don't know what's going to happen. So it is tentative, subject to federal, state guidelines to ensure health and safety for our students, staff, and their families. As we
One
move
thing
on,
it'd be good maybe at the next board meeting if maybe Jen could give us a little bit of a presentation on, what he's going to be doing or what they're going to be doing, kind of to give us an idea of, what they're going to have to do as far as, the turnover and the changeover, trying to keep everything clean.
yes. And that's another thing I might want to mention with that CARES Act money. We have the ability to hire staff with it as well. So we could hire additional staff to help clean, and we have budgeted for that and thinking that there will be a need to hire some additional help with cleaning. Right now, Member Hennis, what we are working on as a leadership team, that's our next project. Right now, we're trying to get our plan to you and get it approved. We need to get that plan to our parents so that parents can now start actively enrolling in school. It's because we need to know when it is deemed safe for kids to come back, which model they're going to choose, so we can prepare and plan for that. But then after those steps are in place, between now and kids coming back, we will be coming up. I will be writing a letter. We'll be coming up with with a plan that we will communicate on what we're going to do to protect the health, safety, and well-being of people, and what processes we're going to go through to clean and take care of our campuses. So we are working on all of that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so you probably can't really answer this in detail, but on tagging on what Mr. Hennis just said, as far as the students in class, are the students going to be staying in the same room all day, or are they going to be going from one classroom to the next?
Based on a typical high school campus, it would be a very difficult task to have
Okay,
kids
so
stay
they're
in
gonna
one
be-
room. They're gonna have to rotate. just
They're
like
gonna
they always
rotate
have.
classrooms from that, so that's gonna make the daily cleaning even more difficult.
Well, 'cause every time a kid leaves the class and goes into a new class, right?
Okay.
So,
So they're gonna have to clean that.
yeah.
Okay,
And so there's gonna be all kinds of things that have to happen as far as that goes, because to have kids, you couldn't even have kids stay in the same room because they all have to be taking the same class. Unlike elementary, our kids take a variety of different
sure.
electives and things like that, so they
They're
wouldn't be
moving
able to,
around.
they're gonna have to move.
Mhm.
But we're gonna, and so again, yes, we're gonna have to have protocols in place for every time they leave a room and come into it,
Okay,
when we do that, so.
okay.
And you see that they just approved 2 Lysol products for on surfaces, hard, non-porous surfaces for taking out, for taking care of COVID,
Yeah,
contact stuff.
yeah, I did see that. We were actually talking about that today and saying, maybe that's gonna be the fix in the next few months. We're gonna come out with those type of light bulbs. We just replace all of our fluorescent lights with them. And then the rooms will be sterile, I don't know. But there's all kinds of things we're doing.
This was Lysol.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things that we're gonna have to look at.
So when do you think you're gonna be able to give us this operational, program of how this all is gonna look as far as?
Well, as soon as we
Based
have.
on our approval tonight, you're gonna get with your staff, how
Well-
soon are we gonna be able to see the guts of this?
I mean, as far as cleaning,
No, I mean, the procedures, and how I'm still really curious on how we're gonna handle our special ed students, how we're gonna do that.
well, our special ed students are gonna have to operate as they always have. Some of our special needs students.
Yep.
Will have to be with us 5 days a week and in a single room
Okay,
with that group of teachers. And most of those classes, the numbers are small. They're less than, they're 10, they're 12, they're 8 kids. So that special ed population is gonna be very different. A student has an IEP or a 504, we'll handle that no differently than we've always handled. We'll have meetings, we'll have IEPs, we'll follow federal and state guidelines with our IEPs and 504s, that will go on. But some of our kids that have more, physical disabilities and things like that require special care and different things like that. So we're gonna have to accommodate those groups based
Okay.
on those needs.
and so how are we gonna do that virtually? How is that gonna happen?
That's the same way when we left last year. It's very difficult to do in a virtual setting
Okay,
because, again, we have means and we've done it and we will continue to do to meet our needs. But some of these cases, with the student not being able to be physically there, it makes it much more difficult to provide for them the way we would, because they're not going to be able to be as attentive and to learn in a virtual setting.
Mhm.
So, but again, just because my child has needs that would cause them to want to come to school, maybe they're in a chair, maybe they need to be cared for all the time, doesn't mean as a parent that I'm okay with bringing my child to school. So,
Yeah, I think
we can't assume that just because,
still so much to learn right now.
yeah, there's so much. So to answer your question, so we can have more of the inner workings, we're still waiting on some type of guidelines from the health department. I mean, the federal guidelines that came out from advice from doctors and health people and all that. We've gotten nothing from the state or Pinal County to give us any type of guidelines on what we should do. All of us are just thinking outside the box and we're making assumptions based on what we've learned and what we think we should do, but we have no solid guidelines as of yet to put in place.
Okay.
So, and that's a lot of concern. That's a lot of concern with kids moving around and changing classrooms. How do we deal with that? We have no guidelines whatsoever.
Mhm.
So,
Dr. Davey, wouldn't you agree that, like Chuck said, was saying, you're gonna have these students change from one classroom to another, and you're gonna have that one issue that sticks out, and that's the restroom use.
Mhm.
Don't you agree that you're gonna probably need those additional funds for a staff member to be in the bathrooms for the women and the boys at all times, to be cleaning them constantly?
oh, we're definitely gonna have to have increased staff to help with the cleanliness. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But then again, that's again, the reason, and again, as I get into this with the hybrid model, the fewer kids we have on campus, the easier done that is than if you had 1,800 kids on campus. So,
Yeah, that's the positive, you got 50%.
but I think the bottom line is, and let me go to this next slide as I present the two models. I think the bottom line is for you as our board and for anybody else to say, and any other school district in this state, it is virtually impossible to open up a school with kids and follow 100% to the T the CDC guidelines.
Yeah.
You cannot follow those guidelines as they are written and open a school. It can't happen. So you can't open it, you can't put kids on a school bus based on those guidelines or you go broke. So what we have to understand is we're gonna follow the guidelines as best. So we are anxiously awaiting some extra help from the health officials on things that we should be considering as we're opening. So we're looking at, so right now what I'm presenting to you is the model and the plan for how we would like to open, but we still have to get the integral guidelines and cleaning and how we're gonna handle all of that. We need to put that plan in place so I can present it to you. So, looking at teaching and learning, we're proposing two models. The modified in-person or the hybrid, that's on campus blended with home and online learning. And remote learning will continue until it's deemed safe to provide modified or in-person instruction. So even if you choose this model, you're gonna start off the year in an online format until we're told that it's safe for kids to return. The other model is the online, the Casa Grande Union High School District Online High School, pending approval from the state, full-time online instruction with Casa Grande Union High School teachers. Now, I wanna make it a point right now as we open the entire school up in an online format, we do not have to have an AOI, nor do we have to have kids start in that format until the governor deems that it is safe for kids to return. And then at that point in time, the only way for students to remain in a fully virtual environment is to have an AOI. So we can start everybody the same and then make that transition when it's deemed safe to go in.
And just one other clarification on
Yes.
the modified in person, where you got different, and you mentioned this, but you guys already kind of talked about this. If you had students, a freshman and a junior of the same family,
Yes,
then you would work at trying to schedule keeping those kind of blocks together.
correct. So while our intention right now for the modified, once we know the modified, the modified in-person students, once we know how many students are coming our way, then each grade level on each campus, and it may be different on both campuses depending on the number of kids, we'll divide each grade level completely in half, and half of them will be an A student, half of them will be a B student, and those are the days a week they'll come to the campus. However, in our society today, we have many families that are blended families. So whether it be a sibling, a blended family situation, we will work with our families to make life more convenient for them so that they could have all of their kids coming on the same days of the week in person and the same days at home versus alternating. Should they choose. I have 3 children. Many of you have more than some. So sometimes it's not a bad thing to have one at home and one day and one. So we'll see what our parents. But if our parents want that, we will certainly accommodate them.
That's right, thank you.
Yep. So moving on, again, to explain the modified person a little bit more, it combines the face-to-face with online teaching into one cohesive experience. Approximately half the students are on campus, with the other half of the students working online. It allows for physical distancing by a reduced number of students in the classroom. And while on campus, students will adhere to all in-person learning experience protocols. So we'll continue to follow our normal protocols. And also with the modified, students will participate in the blended model, provides both in-person and remote learning experience. So again, we kind of explained it here. If I'm a group A student, I'll learn in person every Monday and Thursday and every other Wednesday. If I'm a group B student, I'll learn in person on Tuesday, Friday, and every other Wednesday. On-campus days, students will learn remotely. On the off-campus days, they'll learn remotely. So just modifying that every other day. So if you look at a cycle, a 2-week cycle, all of our students would have 5 full days on campus and 5 days off campus.
But even when they're off campus, they're in the same class.
They're in the same class, and I can talk a little bit about different. So let's talk about online learning, and then I'll explain. So then in our online learning, to provide expanded learning opportunities, our AOI has been established for alternative platforms for those students who choose to learn remotely from online. However, this is important to note, and it's part of the AOI application. Students who choose to register in the CGUHSD online AOI must have adequate internet service to choose that model. This is a different model that's a model of choice. We'll do our best. Part of our CARES money is to try to find hotspots. We're doing everything in our power to work with our kids who don't have solid internet at home to make sure they do, regardless of the 2 models they choose. But we can't guarantee internet access to every family, so they have to, if they're going to choose this model, they have to understand they have to have access to that, and that's part of being in an AOI for that. Then students will be enrolled in a full course load, typically 6 courses per semester, and attendance will be taken each period. So it's important to let you know, as we open up virtually, or we open up in an online format, even with our kids who are going to choose to come in a modified in person, differently than how we ended last year. Teachers will be taking attendance every hour. We have the means to do that through it. We have what's called teams. Kids have to log in. Teachers can actually see their class. We can take attendance. We can do bell work for both classes simultaneously that allows a demonstration that kids connect and not into class like they're supposed to. Kids are going to have to follow a bell schedule to a sense, just like they would at school, because they'll be interacting with 6 different periods, 6 different teachers throughout the school day, even in AOI. They'll be interacting. It's not like they're taking 1 class at a time. They'll be interacting with 6 different teachers throughout the day and taking a full course load. So students may participate, students who choose online, should we have extracurricular activities and high school athletics following in-person eligibility and guidelines. And again, students will have to be eligible and passing their classes just like doing the in-person. They would be able to participate in extracurricular activities. And all classes, again, will be taught by Casper Union High School certified teachers. So a contingency plan, we thought this was important. Casper Union High School is, our contingency planning is contingency planning in the event the state, local governments reissue stay-at-home orders. In addition, that 2 proposed models were prepared to deliver instruction online for all students with substantial enhancements for a manner in which it was delivered last spring that we followed just the state guidelines. I have all the confidence in the world in our teachers' ability to deliver instruction. We're ready. They've done a lot. Since we closed last year, our teachers have worked hard to get the curriculum on Blackboard, to use their PLC process. They've done everything to plan and get ready. Our teachers have the first 9 weeks of curriculum already on Blackboard that they can go to for teaching online. So I have no doubt that our teachers are capable of teaching in this format and providing quality instruction. They've worked hard since we closed last year to develop this in the event that we might not reopen this year. So we prepared for that.
So let's assume we stay in the virtual format for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the governor says we can go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids that are in the AOI, they switch over to the AOI. How is the time? Is the timing going to be? Is the timing from the virtual to the AOI the teaching?
Right. Well,
schedule?
I think to answer your question, remember, right, what we talked about is if I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, regardless, when I'm a parent, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, regardless of what's going to happen with the governor, I don't ever want my child coming to school and I want them to learn online. It's probably in our best interest to start them in the AOI model right off the get-go, and so there isn't a transition, so that it's a smooth in. But one of the things we put in there with our AOI, should a family or a student choose the AOI option, the soonest they can switch from AOI to modified in person will be at the semester. We can't make jumps in the middle of the year because there won't be a right.
So they're gonna start
We
AOI
can
or
start them in
virtual
that,
at the
we can
beginning of
start them
the
in that,
year.
yes.
And so the only difference is that the kids that virtual are gonna be, they're gonna be virtual all the way through. So
Right.
that,
If we know they're gonna be virtual all the way
That-
through, then there's no reason to start them in any other
that's the
format.
clarification I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're not gonna start them in any other format because it would be a difficult transition. Yes,
But if a kid got started in AOI and that wasn't, found out that just for safety issues and health concerns, et cetera, and things were better, your windows to come into the regular would be at the semester breaks.
correct, because it is so difficult at the high school to make transitions in the middle of the semester. You know, because of grading, everything else, it's just easier, even with our own students, we cut them off and don't let them move classes so that there's a clean break with grades and everything else to make a change. So,
Yeah, there's no other.
semester is the easiest break to make and make a transition. Joe?
Based on the virtual learning that took place in the spring,
Mhm.
do you have a percentage, because you went back to the students on the AOI program, they've got to have adequate internet service.
Mhm.
So based on the results that you saw last spring, was there a percentage of maybe 10% of the kids didn't have that ability to go to the internet?
It's hard to judge, remember Lopez, it's really hard to judge last spring, and here's why. Again, we follow guidelines. This is not because of anything our teachers did. Our teachers did what they were supposed to do. They delivered instruction. They made attempts to reach kids. So our teachers did what they were supposed to do. The problem is, because we had grades at the end of the third quarter, and we had to have, this was just sprung on us that you're done, you're closing. So we had grades. So what we did is we had to use the fourth quarter. Mainly, kids could improve their grade slightly, but they also could, if they were failing, we still had time to catch them up and bring them up to speed. But we had a number of kids who had a passing grade at the end of the third quarters, and they gave us no effort over the last 9 weeks. They didn't even bother to log in. They didn't try. They didn't care because there were no consequences for their inability to connect with us. This year, when we open up, whether you're in the modified, you sign up for modified and you start virtually, we will be taking attendance every day. You have a 0 in the grade book. The only way to get more than a 0 is to participate in class and do your homework and do your assignments. And so there will be a lot more traditional accountability as we open up than there was last spring. Kids learned very quickly that, I don't want to log in, I'm not going to. And they didn't. Because there was really no consequence for, their grade couldn't go down and just could improve. And so so it's hard to judge. Now, what I do know, and again, from our surveys, to our best guess, is we have 400 to 600 students that have issues with some type of internet at home. That's what we know based on survey results and information we've got. Somewhere between 400 and 600 kids in our district combined have issues with some kind of internet. Because when we say adequate internet, because I get Wi-Fi on my phone, that's not adequate internet. You know what I mean? I need to be able to get on my device and do things and interact. And so that's what we're working on, is roughly knowing that about 400 to 600 kids don't have adequate. And we're trying to, and again, the city, I commend the mayor and what they're doing with the city. I'm working with Mike Cruz at the elementary district. We have an outside company who's looking at trying to bring in towers and cell towers and things to help with this cause and want to help kids get internet. So the city's working with us. We're going to do what we can to try to get all of our kids some type of access to the internet. So,
But just as a clarification, if a family or a child was to choose the AOI, you would require that they showed that they had sufficient internet to cover them.
right. We would ask them that's the first question we'll ask. Do you have adequate information? No. And it doesn't mean, just because we say that, it doesn't mean they have to have it in their own home. Maybe they have an aunt, a cousin, whatever else next door that they could go to and get on the internet all day. That's still adequate, as long as they have the ability to get on the internet every day, because they're going to be having to interact. We don't expect them, like in a typical class, they're not going to log on the internet and stay in class for 60 minutes solid for that class. But they're going to be checking in and out. We're going to take attendance. They're going to be interacting with their teacher on a regular basis. And if you're in that AOI, you're going to interact with 6 different teachers on a regular basis every day. So
don't the students who are doing the hybrid model are doing the virtual, or don't they require internet also?
They do, and that's why we're gonna try to help them while they're on virtual. But to be in an all online, that's your personal choice for this online
Yeah.
program, you can't choose that if you don't have AI. For everybody else, even them, we're gonna try to help all of our students get adequate internet. But we can't guarantee that we can necessarily do that.
So if you don't have good internet, there's not a good choice for you either way.
It's kind of tough. And like I said, there's other districts that are they're opening with 3 models.
Okay.
The other model outside of R2 would be coming every day, all day long regardless.
Okay.
Which that takes into account, I don't need internet. In a sense, I don't need internet. But what that does is that overcrowds our schools, makes classes bigger, more kids on campus. Because remember, even in this model, if we have students who absolutely have to be on campus and it's not their day, we do have to accommodate them. And we will have a contingency plan to accommodate our kids. And so that may be that they're here on our campus being supervised in another room, socially distanced, where they're on their laptop, and that's their Wi-Fi to do their online learning.
Yeah.
So,
And what's the situation as far as, how much access to the portable hotspots that you have to take home?
Dave, how many do we have that did not get picked up last year?
Out of the 170, I think we had like 25 left.
Yeah, we had like 170 available last year. We still had 25 that nobody bothered to pick up. Now, again, they could have, but they didn't. So, and again, we did everything in our power to communicate that. We're currently looking to purchase even more. And I know the city is asking us to also provide them with the hotspots that we're looking for, because they may contribute to our costs as well. So we're going to try to get everyone, but it's like, and again, not to use an old analogy, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We have them, but we got to get, there has to be a willingness of the families to come pick them up so that they have that adequate.
Well, it might be a different situation if you're going to the modified with part of your day is you're on the internet most of the day.
Yes. So, all right. So that's kind of our plan, and we'll get to it. So at the same time, I think as we've listened to staff and we've listened to students, we listen to our families. The one thing we have to talk about is the work environment. And so that's my next slide. So the work environment, safety for all. As a leadership team, we've met on this topic a lot. We've met on this for a long time. And the one thing that we're going to recommend as a leadership team right now, I talked with our attorney. He's told us that it is within our rights as a district to require all staff to report back to work and everything that's going on, even if kids are not coming here, to do that. At the same time, that's bodies, that's people, that's social distancing. If we're going to open up remotely, the leadership team, as we're looking at staff, students, and community, we believe that it's in the best interest of our students and for our students and staff that our staff remain working remotely when contracts begin for the 2021 school year. And that we recommend that we continue working remotely until the state deems that it is safe for students to return to school. And at that time, we can have staff return as well. And so that's our recommendation, but that's just a recommendation. You are the board. And so,
did you say you were going to use part of that extra time through the 17th?
Well, we like all of our 8 days of professional development is going to have to be done remotely. We can't bring all the teachers together in one spot in our district and do professional development like we would have in the past. We're going to have to do it in a remote format, and we're already planning for all of it. Teachers, have the ability with their devices and their own, and again, we did check out hotspots to some staff members last year as well who needed them to be able to teach. What we're saying is that our teachers can deliver instruction, from their houses without having to come in to the buildings. We have things we're working right now, things for parents to be doing, for our staff to do, our security, we're working on everything. Our recommendation is that we allow everybody to stay remotely until students are deemed it safe to come back to school, because it's safe for students to go back to school, then we can bring staff back to school. And part of the concern, and we'll talk about, and the next slide is just Q&A with you. Part of our concern is this. Remember when we closed schools, and we were told by the governor that we were closing our schools. It was to a certain date, and then that date got extended, and then it got extended again. There's nothing right now that says the 17th is set in stone. It may be the 17th, it gets extended 2 more weeks, and then it may get extended 2 more weeks. So I can tell you right now, a number of districts, Mesa, the biggest school district in the state, has already come out and said they're going to learn remotely for the first semester. They're not coming back, is what they're saying. They're not coming back in person, they're moving remotely. Other districts are going to look to potentially learn remotely for the first 9 weeks, get through the quarter. Again, just to buy time for this, hopefully for this to die down, do that. So, that's something that I present to the board, would ask your thoughts and direction on. First of all, we need to make sure you're in agreement with the plan that we presented, because we need to present it to families to get them enrolled in where we are with our staff coming into the building or continuing to work remotely until kids come back. So that's a decision that has to be made, a decision we need to make on whether we require them to come in or not. I can also tell you this, as a staff, we have a number of staff members who are married couples, who have children who are going to be in the elementary district. If all staff is required to come to work every day, and we have a child who can't go to school because their school is virtual, they're in a tough place. You know what I mean? We have staff members whose kids go to school in other districts outside of ours, who they have to drop them off at school and come to work, whose kids may not be able to. So we're going to have a lot of issues with people being able to satisfy their own families and fulfill their professional obligations. So again, I don't have a lack of confidence in our teachers' ability to deliver quality instruction online, because we're going to do it in a much more rigorous way. We're taking attendance and doing all that. But initially, I had even talked to the attorney. We talked about maybe having all the staff come in every day and teach from that format. Not saying that staff, we couldn't have staff. All of us are coming in to the district office. We're working and doing that. So it's something that we need to consider on how we do that. I believe that nothing else, we need all of our professional development needs to be done in a virtual format with people not in the building, because we can't bring them all together.
Nor should you at this point. I mean, realistically, it's just not, safety is the key issue.
Right. We have to think about safety for our staff as well as our students. So, but anyway, with that, this is just the last slide is just for you. Any Q&A, any questions, anything that I haven't covered, concerns, things that you want to talk about before you vote, because we do need to communicate with our parents as soon as possible that we have a plan. And then we need to get them to start registering kids for school, so that when it is safe for kids to come back, we know which format parents are going to send their kids back to us, so we can prepare our teaching staff adequately to teach in both modalities. And the other question we will ask when we register is, I also need to be able to share our plan with our nutrition, our nutrition department, our vendor, and our transportation vendor. Because if we're going to open remotely, there will be no buses running, until we have kids in person. And if we're going to open in a virtual format, we're going to need to continue to deliver meals to our families who need those meals, just as we have been all summer. We're going to continue to get food to our families. And so I need to share this also with the outside vendors as well. So.
So the key right now is to adopt a plan
Yes.
that allows you the ability to go ahead and get things out and let parents start making decisions, et cetera.
Yes.
So all of us as a board and as a community and as staff recognize that this is a very strange and fluid situation right now too, and the governor could at any point lock it down, period.
Right. Yeah.
Or set up another opening or et cetera. So yeah, I think what we want is something so we can provide for the student, staff, and families some kind of idea of what our thoughts are at this point to go forward.
Correct. And maybe as a board, again, just to be proactive, knowing that there's a very good chance that the 17th date is going to get moved, do we want to, before we publicize a plan, do we want to just let our families know that, you know, for the first 9 weeks of school, we're going to go remotely unless the governor comes back and deems it safe to come to school prior to that date? You know what I mean? Because otherwise we're going to be, you know, so we can leave it as is, but just know as soon as the 17th gets close, it can get pushed 2 more weeks. And then it can get pushed 2 more weeks. And so there are a lot of districts that are starting to take a proactive approach and just saying, we're going to go virtually for the first 9 weeks, just minimum, just to be safe, unless the governor comes back and says it's safe to come back to school at this date, and then you can transition. But at least people can plan that way versus every 2 weeks having to extend a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. So again, just a thought.
A lot of people involved with that decision.
Yes, there is.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Well,
but right now, our plan is to open the 2 models to start school in an online format for everybody on the 10th. And if it's safe on the 17th to start in the modified in person, we would go there. If it's not, we're going to have to push that out to whenever, you know, it gets pushed. So,
And I think put on the note that goes out, that if these are going to be pushed, there is the real reality that we could go to a complete 9-week virtual time.
well, that's why I built in this slide that I just presented to you is without the discussion Q&A, is the same presentation that we'll put on our websites and we'll send out. So we built that into our contingency plan, that should things change, we have to follow suit. So there is that reality. And again, the one thing we did happen as we kept getting pushed out, we were getting pushed out about a week in advance of the next push. So I would imagine that by the 10th, when we're starting school, we'll know whether or not the 17th is real or going to be extended. So probably before the first day of school even happens, official day of school, we'll know if the 17th is going to hold or get pushed a little farther. So
this gives us a starting point.
yes, it does. And it gives us a starting point to be able to communicate to our families to get them to start committing to how their students are going to come back.
Okay, here's another little starting point for you. The coronavirus watch today has 3,653 new cases and 117 deaths.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's not going down.
And this thing has not peaked anywhere close at this point.
Call for questions.
Okay, Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes,
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes,
Thank you. We will communicate with parents. We're still working on making sure we get all of our incoming 8th graders into our database. So I don't want to communicate till we can. So hopefully by the end of the week, we will be able to communicate to all parents our plan. And we're trying to make sure we get our incoming 8th graders into that database before we push. So.
item F, move to approve the services agreement as presented between the Arizona State Schools for the deaf and blind in the Cascade Union High School District.
So moved.
Second.
second,
Discussion,
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
yes,
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
yes. Item G, move to approve the fiscal year 2021 Cabot IGA as presented.
I'll move,
Second.
Discussion,
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
yes,
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
yes. And move to approve, item H, move to approve the Pinal County Education Services Consortium IGA as presented.
So moved.
move, second,
Discussion,
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
yes,
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
yes. Item I, move to approve the following donations as presented, $600 to Mr. Randy Main account for miscellaneous needs from an anonymous donor. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Motion,
So moved.
Second.
second,
discussion,
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins,
And item J, move to approve to accept the following board informational reports as presented.
I'll move.
Second?
Discussion.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Okay, the consent agenda, we have items A through E. Is there anything anybody wants to move for discussion?
I move we approve consent agenda A through E as presented.
Second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Hennis,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. There's no informational only items, so any future agenda items that anybody wants to put on the agenda?
Well,
I think just kind of what we mentioned earlier, Jim, since he's got, his whole new, whole, book to sort through of what he sees as kind of projections on potentially, needing repair, and then just a kind of a basic idea of just, and I know it won't be, hard and fast, but just have Tim come and describe, the cleaning pattern and what they think they're gonna be required by his staff and extra cleaning people come in.
And I'm gonna be working on a letter for our parents as well as some protocols, because our families need to know too. What can I expect when my kid comes? So I'll be working with that, and I may be some things I communicate with you even prior to the next board meeting. So I can just keep, do that, and then we can certainly shore that up at the next board meeting as well. So,
That's great, thanks.
Move to adjourn.
wait, hold on, Joe had, hold on, Joe had a question.
Second.
Sorry, Joe. You can still ask it, I'll
Oh, I
ask
had
it.
a question, I'm sorry.
Is Chartwell, is Chartwell's the one that's doing the food every week?
Yes,
Oh, they are doing that?
yes, yeah, they're our food service vendor, but they're continuing to feed our kids.
Right, because there was a concern that their costs had gone up.
Yeah, you see him out there every day delivering meals.
Yeah, it did, but they also get some federal dollars for doing what we're doing. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll set that.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
okay,
All in favor?
Bye.
All right.
thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Be careful, be safe, be sanitized.
All righty.
Need us to sign
Bye.
Bye-bye.